We couldn't have came from the monkey because we never had the monkey blood. For two, white people have 4% Neanderthal DNA, and they're only 96% human beings. Black people are 100% human beings. We have no Neanderthal DNA. The Neanderthal DNA comes from the monkey and the canine. So we don't have any DNA tracing us back to monkey and canine. How could we have evolved from that? We know that all life comes from it and is sustained by that sun. So why is this important? Because whether you want to call it Ra, the sun, they create another word for tomorrow. Guess what melanin is? Condensed sunlight. So everything created by the sun has melanin in it. Water even has melanin in it. Trees have melanin in it. Oxygen has melanin in it. Why is it important? Because the Caucasian is void of the melanin that we possess. We possess uromelanin and neuromelanin. Now why is neuromelanin important? Because it has nerves. That's why it's called neuromelanin. And these nerves actually connect your thoughts to the creator. The Caucasian does not have neuromelanin because he's not a natural part of creation, and the creator does not share a communicative medium with him. So how the hell do we evolve from something that the creator has no contact with? 85% of Caucasians have calcified pineal glands. The soul enters the body through the pineal gland. This is why babies have a soft spot on your head.
Did you know that black people only have 0.3% Neanderthal DNA? Every other race on the planet has 1 to 2%, and black people have 0.3. So in reality, black people are more human than any other race on this planet. These white supremacists going around saying that they're the peak human, no, sweetheart. Genetically, black people are the superior humans.
Except Neanderthals did not come from Africa. They came from Europe and Asia. That's why white people and Asians have Neanderthal DNA and we do not. Those your people, baby. Claim them.
You will know that black people with the darkest black skin are the only humans on earth to possess 100% of a human's DNA. Everybody else have some animal and beast in them. That's why their hair don't grow like our hair. That's why their hair grows straight like a monkey. It goes straight like a dog. It goes straight like a sheep. They don't nap, it don't kink, it don't kank.
Do you realize that the most racist scientific community ever were 19th century anthropologists? They're the ones that set up the race and this, and white male humans were at the top of the evolutionary ladder, and blacks and everybody else were lower, closer to the apes and all of this. If you called someone Neanderthal, that was an insult. Like, they're still evolving. In the 1990s, now that we can do genetic tracking and things, the world found out that Europeans are between 1 and 3% Neanderthal genetically, and Africans are 0% Neanderthal. So in the 1990s, research papers started coming out talking about how creative and imaginative the Neanderthals must have been.
A lot of Africans around the world have taken on this responsibility of civilizing the Neanderthal. I'm not interested in civilizing the Neanderthal because the Neanderthal can't be civilized. Remember, we did this before. Did we not go into Europe and civilize Spain? Did we not go into Europe and civilize Italy? Did we not already go into Europe and take those backward European tribes and try to make them decent human beings? And what did Africa get for that? You got enslaved. What did Africa get for trying to civilize the white man? You got colonialism. What did Africa get for trying to teach the white man how to live as a decent human being? You got neocolonialism. Every time we try to introduce the white man to human civilization, we suffered. Stop trying to save the white man. Save yourself.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks again for tuning in to Profess. Really appreciate your support on this platform. All right. For generations, one of the biggest lies ever told in America was the idea that, black folks were somehow less human, less evolved, and closer to apes. A lie used to justify slavery, segregation, racism, and white supremacy. But what happens when science starts tearing that lie apart? What if the very people that history actually tried to place at the bottom were the closest to human ancestry? Well, in today's video, we are looking into this fascinating conversation that is actually going on right now with ancient DNA, including Neanderthal ancestry. and what it really tells about where different populations come from, why racist ideas like superior and inferior are actually torn apart when scientific evidence is actually presented. Let's take a look at these videos. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit that like button. I really like to hear your opinion down below in the comment section. I want us to listen carefully, then I will be back with more commentaries after this. Let's take a look.
Africans equal the only people with 100% pure Homo sapien DNA. Everyone else equals Homo sapien plus Neanderthal or Denisovan fragments. That's why scientists always compare back to sub-Saharan Africans as the control group, because we are the baseline. There's only one truly indigenous human population, which is Africans. Everyone else is carrying fragments from Neanderthals or Denisovans. That doesn't make them less human, but it does make them hybrids. The African is the original, the rest are branches. When a real natural human group exists, say Africans or even later groups like Native Americans, a few things are always true. They leave behind 4 bloodlines: maternal mitochondrial DNA and paternal Y-DNA, and everything in between. Their DNA survives intact in descendants. Their culture leaves lasting marks: tools, art, language, ritual. That's how real humans pass forward. What Neanderthal looks like instead is no mothers. Neanderthal women's mitochondrial DNA is completely absent in all living humans. No fathers. Neanderthal Y chromosomes are completely absent. No sons. Hybrid sons were sterile, classic hybrid infertility. Only daughters carry tiny fragments forward, and only when born with African Homo sapien women. Culture collapse. After 400,000 years of survival, they left almost no symbolic art, no language records, no continuity. Yeah? That's the fingerprint of a population that was never fully compatible, a hybrid species that hit a dead end. Why it looks engineered or experimental. Think about this. If Neanderthals survived ice ages, predators and famines for hundreds of thousands of years, why did they suddenly vanish within a few thousand years of contact with Homo sapien? About 5,000 years, Why do we see only tiny, carefully filtered fragments survive, like skin, immunity, metabolism genes, while everything else, fertility, bloodline, culture, gets erased? That's exactly what you would expect if they were a designed hybrid experiment, strong for survival, but
Family, did you guys know that non-Africans share up to 4% of Neanderthal DNA, and most Africans don't share any at all? Family, I need you guys to swim along with me as we dive into the genetic differences between Africans and non-Africans and what makes this Neanderthal DNA so important. Now, about 60 to 70,000 years ago, modern humans carrying the mitochondrial haplogroup L3 left out of Africa. When they reached Europe and Asia, they interbred with Neanderthals. Neanderthals are archaic humans that evolved outside of Africa into Europe. Now, these Neanderthals lived in Eurasia for hundreds of thousands of years before anatomically modern humans left out of Africa. And this is how East Asians, Native Americans, and Europeans ended up with a 1 to 4% DNA from Neanderthals. And here is a little known fact. Neanderthals did not pass their mitochondrial DNA to humans. They passed autosomal genes to humans, right? Now, these genes impact immunity, skin pigmentation, and metabolism, helping non-Africans adapt to their environments. Now, here's the major difference. African populations, especially those of L1 and L2, never left Africa, and they never came into contact with Neanderthals. So this means that Africans did not inherit Neanderthal DNA and kept a pure genetic lineage. Now, before you go crazy in my comment section, let's explain why some Africans do carry some Neanderthal genes. Now, the only reason why Africans today possess Neanderthal DNA is because of back migrations back into Africa long after the Out of Africa event took place 60,000 years ago. This happened through historical events like the Roman Empire and the spread of Islam, and later the transatlantic slave trade. These migrations brought non-African genes back into the African population. So now let's break down some of these Neanderthal genes. So in non-Africans, Neanderthal DNA includes immune system genes like toll-like receptors that help defend against pathogens, skin and hair pigmentation genes such as BCN2 and MC1R. These genes are responsible for skin pigmentation and freckles in Europeans. Metabolism genes. Genes like SLC16A11, which affects fat storage and diabetes risk in Native Americans and East Asians. Now, East Asians carry the highest levels of Neanderthal DNA, up to 4%. Now, here's the takeaway. Non-Africans possess up to 4% of Neanderthal DNA, while Africans don't, unless it was introduced through historical back migration. Africans maintain a pure genetic lineage that was unaltered by Neanderthals. Meanwhile, non-Africans benefited from the inheritance of their Neanderthal DNA. Thanks for watching. If you want to learn more, like, follow, and share.
Male Neanderthals interbred with female Homo sapiens who would have been in Africa. And the hybrid male offspring were actually infertile. Like the male offspring of the female Homo sapiens and male Neanderthals actually could not reproduce. They could not pass down that Neanderthal gene. So the female offspring that was the hybrid between the male Neanderthal and female Homo sapien was actually able to reproduce. So anytime you see any Neanderthal DNA present to this day, that means that it came from the hybrid female of the Neanderthal man and the Homo sapien African woman, right? So that is interesting to me because there would have also been Neanderthal women at the same time there were Neanderthal men. So what made these Neanderthal men stop breeding with these other Neanderthal women and then all of a sudden start going towards these African Homo sapiens and start interbreeding? And I'm pretty sure it wasn't like some cute thing that was happening. You know what I mean? Like I'm pretty sure it was very crazy and honestly like dangerous in those times. But like what made it so that the male Neanderthals just went after the female African Homo sapiens and started interbreeding over there rather than interbreeding with their own Neanderthal women? And so the Neanderthal women phase out because like they're not being reproduced with, and then the male Neanderthal also phases out because the DNA that is going into the new generation, the males are infertile. So it can only be passed down from the women. And so over time that just gets phased out of the DNA. Like I'm just really confused on the whole situation right there because it seems like something was happening that was wild to where these Neanderthal men no longer wanted to reproduce with their same species. And they saw these African Homo sapiens and said, actually, let me go interbreed over there. Like they just decided that they wanted to do that out of nowhere. And I feel like that's partly why Neanderthals aren't in existence today. Like the DNA is there, but like there's not just Neanderthals walking around, to my knowledge. But like, I think all of that is interesting. I'm really trying to figure out what actually went on, seriously.
You ever wonder why less than 15% of the world's population feels the need to control 100% of the narrative? Because when you're a genetic outlier, born from a recessive mutation, with a ticking clock on your DNA, you have to lie to survive. Let's get into it. Modern Europeans carry between 2 to 4% Neanderthal DNA. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's confirmed by peer-reviewed journals like Nature, Science Advances, and Cell. The Neanderthals were not some mystical master race. They were cold-adapted hominins who lived in caves, scavenged for food, and operated in small, isolated groups. They weren't the future. They were a failed branch of the human tree. And those Neanderthal traits still show up in their descendants. Lower sociability, higher aggression, light skin and light eyes, red or straight hair, high pain tolerance, shorter limb ratios, and a disconnection from nature's rhythms. They weren't creators, they weren't builders, they were survivors of harsh, sun-starved environments until they weren't. They died out, not because they were killed off, but because their own epigenetic behavior, their limited fertility, isolationist tendencies, and lack of social cohesion couldn't sustain their species. Their extinction is a warning, not a blueprint. So how did they live on? Through interbreeding with Homo sapiens. And that's where modern Europeans come in. The Neanderthal ghost genome lives inside them today. And ironically, that same genetic signature they carry is the very thing they now weaponize to claim superiority. But here's where it gets deeper. Even some East Africans, like Ethiopians, show slightly elevated Neanderthal DNA. Not because they interbred directly with Neanderthals, but because of Eurasian backflow. Invaders from the north came back down into Africa, carrying their DNA, trauma, and mutations with them. And even then, their percentage is far lower than what you see in white Europeans. Sub-Saharan Africans, Indigenous Americans, and Melanesians, their levels of Neanderthal DNA are negligible to non-existent because the most melanated peoples of Earth didn't need to survive the ice by digging holes. They were already thriving in cosmic alignment with Earth, Sun, and Spirit. And speaking of alignment, let's talk skin. The light skin mutation in modern humans is recent, very recent. Studies from University College London show that the SLC24A5 and SLC45A2 gene variants responsible for pale skin didn't even exist until about 6,000 years ago. Before that, even in Europe, the original populations had dark skin, dark eyes, and curly hair. In fact, Cheddar Man, a 10,000-year-old skeleton found in England, had very dark skin and blue eyes. Let that sink in. Whiteness did not exist when the first civilizations were rising, which means the founders of Kemet, not white. The builders of Sumer, not white. The mound builders of Cahokia, not white. The creators of the Indus Valley, China's Shang dynasty, Olmecs, Inca, and Maya, not white. So when people ask, what did white people build? The answer is simple. They didn't build. They inherited. And when they realized that their numbers were small and their genes recessive, they panicked. Enter eugenics. Let's name names. Francis Galton, the father of eugenics, cousin to Darwin. Charles Davenport, eugenicist who pushed racial hygiene policies in the US. Harry Laughlin, architect of sterilization laws. Ernst Rudin, Nazi eugenics leader supported by American funding. The Rockefeller Foundation and Carnegie Institution, they funded the research, the labs, the policies. They all pushed the lie that white was not only right, but endangered. So they legislated it, sterilized non-white women, separated babies from their parents, and drew bloodlines to try and purify the impure. Why? Because they saw what was coming. You can't keep a mutation alive when the earth is healing. When the sun returns to its cycle, when people of color reconnect with their power, when rhythm, not reason, guides the future. And now they're saying everyone has melanin. Cute. But next time, let's break that down. Because not all melanin is created equal. There's a reason they study eumelanin, neuromelanin, and pheomelanin separately. There's a reason they mine melanin from fetal tissue in animals. There's a reason they patent it, and there's a reason why, despite all their technology, they can't synthesize the real thing. So no, this isn't just science, it's spiritual warfare through biology. And day 7, we're gonna talk about why they fear the sun and what it means for the end of their timeline.
Alright guys, there you have it. Actually, this is crazy because this is a part of history and science that actually does debunks a lot of myth that we've been actually told or sold to, especially concerning superiority and inferiority, especially coming from all these people who are supremacists wanting to actually go ahead and prove a point. For ages, they've actually wanted to prove a point that melanated people were actually inferior to the Caucasian people. That every time they actually did these experiments, every time that they did their archaeological dig outs, every time they went looking for evidence to actually back their claim, they found something different and they changed the narrative. There is a study that was actually done to go ahead and prove something. I don't remember the exact study. Maybe you can share with us in the comment section, where these scientists, I don't know if they were scientists, but they were surely actually supremacists, because they wanted to prove that Caucasian people actually had bigger brains and therefore way more smarter than melanated people. But they ended up actually finding out that part of the brain that maybe constitute to thinking and all that, I'm not so sure which part. It's actually a study that I saw a while ago. Somebody tell us in the comment if you have come across this study. But they actually found out that melanated people had this part of the brain were actually the bigger, or was actually bigger in melanated folks than in Caucasian folks. And they scrapped the study as quick as they could, because it couldn't actually prove their superiority complex ideas. Now, this propaganda also was pushed by people who wanted to show that these Neanderthals were actually way less inferior, and they actually were connected to people of melanin descent, people from Africa. But turns out they actually found out that European people and Asian people had quite 2 to 4% of Neanderthal DNA. Therefore, actually having their ancestry, or part of their DNA ancestry, coming from Neanderthals who went extinct a while ago. And this is crazy, because this actually looks orchestrated. It looks bioengineered, because the only part of the DNAs that these people actually had was the DNA that actually helps you adapt to the climatic conditions in Europe, like skin pigmentation, which is actually more pale, to help you absorb more vitamin D in Europe, where the sun is actually less available, and certain other traits. And this actually study went on to prove that people from sub-Saharan Africa had 0%, Neanderthal DNA, especially those who never left Africa. But if we look at those who have actually intermingled with Europeans and Caucasian folks, especially in the Black American community and also in North Africa, you'll find some 0.3% Neanderthal DNA, compared to 2 to 4% Neanderthal DNA in European folks, Caucasian folks, Asian folks. But the people in sub-Saharan Africa, whose ancestry has never actually left the continent of Africa, they have absolutely 0%. And this actually is not to prove anything, like, this race is way more human than the other. It's not a study actually to prove these people are way more superior or better than the other. It's actually meant to debunk all these myths that these people have actually always wanted to push around, wanting to dehumanize melanated people, wanting to make melanated people actually seem way more inferior than they were. But now, after actually they discovered this, they started actually coming up with other studies and telling us that Neanderthals were actually smart people. They were actually using tools and all that, just because they found the largest percentage of Neanderthal DNA within their community. Now they changed the story. Neanderthals were no longer apes or foolish. They were actually now smart. They were able to use tools and all that stuff. But this is crazy, because according to their studies, it is only male Neanderthals that were able to actually intermingle with Homo sapiens, the human who came from or migrated from Africa. But their women couldn't. And when they actually bore or had children, their sons, the male children from the Neanderthal and Homo sapien, were actually sterile. They could not reproduce. Only the women or the daughters could actually reproduce and pass on just a specific, just small percentage of their DNA down to what we know as now the Caucasian folks. This is crazy. It's a very wide topic, a very big topic, especially when it comes to the people who, it's a very wide topic, especially for those who have interest in science, archaeology, history of mankind, and all these myths that they like actually bringing us, trying to prove a point of superiority, a point of making the human race to be different. But something very interesting is actually a while ago, some few million years ago, where there was actually way more species of humankind coexisting with each other. The modern human race actually all comes from or evolved in Africa. That is the Homo sapien. But there were other human race, including the Neanderthal and Homo erectus, Homo europictus, all these scientific names, and I cannot cram them off head, but there were around 8 species of humankind evolving in different parts of the world. But to date, it's only the Homo sapiens that actually made it, that actually are remaining. And this is crazy. It's actually a point of interest, because if you look at other apes, like gorillas, for instance, you'll find different species of monkeys. Looking at, chimpanzees, chimps, you'll find different species of them, or orangutans. All these have different species of apes, gorillas, orangutans, monkeys, chimpanzees, bonobos. There's so many actually. Now, which is interesting, if you look at cows, they have different species of cows. You look at horses, chicken. It's only the human beings that do not have different species of human beings, the human race. And now they're discovering that maybe, or according to their scientific studies, there was around 8 species of humankind, but all of them went extinct. Only the current modern human race, the Homo sapiens, actually made it. Well, maybe it's because they were smarter, because of course the current human race has actually civilized or evolved into technology and advanced technology the more than the other species. Well, let me know in the comments, guys, what do you think about today's episode? Subscribe to the channel if you're new, hit that like button. I really like to hear your opinion down below in the comments, and again, see you in the next episode.